2.
Yeah. Welcome to part 2.
On the day of the incident, I was ordered on a special surveillance assignment in this disguise.
I just managed to catch a crab when I suddenly heard a caterwaul from behind me.
I ran into the beachhead at once, where I found the pair in question.
Yes. That a young girl was astride the Englishwoman. Dagger in hand, she stabbed wildly. How did she stab wildly? How does that not count? She can't stab wildly, and I apologize.
Right idea, not right execution. Maybe. I don't know. We'll set.
You will kindly refrain from this exuberant outburst, Council, be they verbal or mental. Ouch. He really put me in my place there. Okay, let me tactical save.
There's something more obvious you need to be looking at here.
Okay.
Something a little bit more contradictory than saying stabbing wildly.
I saw
I saw
blood.
blood on the blade. It proved to me that she'd stabbed the victim multiple times.
Oh, there it is.
Objection.
With that accusatory cry that just welled up from deep inside me, I think I finally understand. Every time Kazuma-sama and Naruhodo-san have stood here at this bench, the stakes have been very, very high indeed. What's the meaning of this?
What is the meaning of this menacing pose, Council?
What is the meaning of this talking? It's like this witness clarifies something for me. Who, what, when, where, how. Ha, you did it too. Not you, Saseki-san. This query is directed at Inspector Hosonoga.
At me?
In your statement just now, you said that the victim was stabbed multiple times.
Yes, that's right. As I said, when I entered the hut, the defendant was already standing over the victim, bloody knife in hand, like a murderous demon.
And yet that cannot be.
What?
Get to the point, please, counsel. The book. The postmortem report it clearly states that the victim was stabbed one time only. In other words, Inspector Hosonoga's testimony is clearly flawed. And Saseki-san, me, you claim to have seen Mambani-san in the throes of stabbing the victim. Yes, I did, wildly. But both you and the inspector confirmed the same point, that there was already blood on the knife that you saw the defendant holding. Yes, and?
Yeah. And?
Oh, sorry. It's quite simple. We know the murder weapon was used to stab the victim only once. Therefore, there's no way there could have been blood on the knife if the single stabbing hadn't already occurred. Alright, that's true. Then what exactly is your contention, counsel? Are you ever going to tell us? Yes, Your Excellency, there's only one logical conclusion. What Saseki-san in fact saw was not the moment that the defendant stabbed the victim at all, but the moment the defendant, in fact, withdrew the blade from the victim's body. That doesn't help. That can't be.
Are you sure about that? Are you sure it doesn't help?
Excellent work, Sasato. You exploded at them without objection and then proceeded to pull them apart systematically.
Well, takes me back.
Objection! I had to do it once.
Yes, I seem to remember your cousin staged a scene much like this in the trial 9 months ago. Half-witted child and a half-baked objection, attempting to steal the show.
You're right. There were certain similarities. Except that the so-called half-witted child managed to outwit the prosecution, who was only half a head of hair.
Enter. My head is quite adequately dressed. In any case, all this talk of stabbing and withdrawing in multiple wounds. It makes not a dot of difference.
What? Why not?
Engage your brain, young man. When the accused first plunged the deadly weapon into the victim, that was the fatal blow. And it was that moment that she had withdrawn the blade ready for her next strike that the witnesses saw. The knife was already tainted with blood because the accused had already stabbed the victim. All you have successfully shown with your little display is that the mustachioed author is prone to moments of exuberance. Slam your back against the wall and lay over your desk, counsel.
I'm in agreement with the prosecution. The defendant was seen wielding the blade at all. That is sufficient grounds for her actions to be viewed with suspicion. But if she was withdrawing the blade...
Then we are back where we started.
Sorry?
Consider this, young yokel boy. If the student girl is innocent as you claim, then why would she have pulled the blade from the victim? And with a demon's cold-blooded composure, too. The prosecution demands an explanation, and it had better be good.
Why did Ray pull out the knife? Ah, yes. Going for the jugular. What does Father mean by that? Let the court hear your answer then, counsel. Truth is, I don't really know, but I have to come up with a plausible reason here. We don't have a case. The reason why the defendant pulled the knife blade out of the victim's body was surely so she could...
Now for the Earl thing to really begin.
Tactical save.
Hashtag tactical save. So what do you think? Reading over these, what do you think?
Well, stab her again is not right. Save her life. Or hide the knife. If she hid the knife, that's pretty much saying that she did it. But maybe... I think it's save her life.
Why?
You're gonna go with stab her again? No, you're not. According to the post-mortem report, the victim's death was not instant.
That's correct. It's thought that she would have remained conscious for a short while after sustaining the injury. Indeed, giving her time to take hold of this piece of evidence that clearly indicates her killer.
The point is, being a medical research assistant, Membani-san was compelled to act when faced with a wounded victim. Instinctively, she pulled the blade out in an attempt to save Miss Brett's life. Which is dumb if it...
Everyone's just like,
If someone's stabbed, hell fact, don't pull out the blade. That blade is literally probably the only thing keeping them alive at that point.
Did you hear that, Your Excellency? It would seem that this is the best we can expect from the young yokel.
Indeed. Is it just me, or does it suddenly feel much colder in here?
Your Excellency, if I may.
Speak, witness.
I would like another opportunity to testify. In respect to the slipshod assertion put forward by the yokel defense counsel, I mean.
Slipshod?
An excellent idea, Inspector. Our young yokel hopeful has a modicum of knowledge when it comes to the law, it seems. But in matters of medicine, he appears to possess not an iota of common sense.
Very well, Inspector, I will permit your request. You will testify again before the court on the subject of the defense counsel's assertion.
Yes, sir. I will do so flawlessly. Pulling a blade from a wound without thinking could cause heavy bleeding. That's basic knowledge, and any medical research assistant with an ounce of sense ought to know. In other words, there's no good reason why the defendant would have tried to pull the knife from the victim. Let's not forget that the young student had a motive for killing the victim. The man the victim murdered 90 months ago, Dr. Wilson, was the defendant's highly respected mentor.
I'm going to be pushing a lot of these, so prepare.
Be prepared.
Is what you just said true, Inspector? Could pulling a knife from a wound really cause the wound to bleed heavily?
Yes, think of the weapon itself as a stopper in the wound that prevents excessive blood loss. Until the doctor is ready to provide proper treatment, that stopper shouldn't be removed.
Oh, I see.
This is why yokels should stay on the farm. Even a quack from some obscure mountain village would have such basic knowledge. Anyone who's ever given someone a little poke with a knife and pulled it out again knows it.
Oh, well. I've never stabbed anyone, you see. Or pulled the blade out of a wound, so. Of course you haven't, but I didn't bring you up to behave like a bandit. Father, is it true what they're telling me? Yes, it's basic remedial knowledge for medics. Ray would have been well aware of it. If she were to claim ignorance of such fundamentals, that would prove fatal in many ways. But then why would Ray have done it? Could she have pulled out the knife in full knowledge that it would be fatal for Miss Brett? I don't know. Ray never once mentioned anything about the knife to me. It seems almost impossible to believe, but could my friend actually have? Sasato. Yes. Pull yourself together. We mustn't lose sight of why we're here. Huh. She almost didn't believe in the victim.
Dun dun dun.
Time for your cross-examination. That's not what Naruhodo and Kazuma taught her. However, I must warn you that if your cross-examination fails to identify any issue with the established facts, I'll be moving to my education immediately afterwards. I understand. Believing in your clients and fighting for their cause will until the bitter end. I knew it would be hard, but I had no idea it would be this hard.
Pulling a blade from a wound without thinking could cause heavy bleeding.
Hold it. You say doing it without thinking could be a problem. Does that mean that if you use due care and attention, it would be alright?
Wouldn't have thought it needs spelling out, really, but the blade is like a stopper in the wound. Remove it, and serious hemorrhage will occur. In other words, a medic would need to be present before any attempt was made to withdraw the blade. Doing it without thinking would be madness. You just can't do it.
Oh well, thank you for such a thorough explanation.
You see, Counsel, you act without thinking. The result is a bloodbath.
Back to the witness testimony, please.
That's basic knowledge that any medical research assistant with an ounce of sense ought to know.
In that case, there's an obvious explanation here.
Which is?
Clearly, the defendant, Raymond Bani-san, does not possess an amount of sense.
I was not just like, Professor Mikatoba.
I'm not sure you should be labeling your best friend as lacking in common sense. Well, I thought it would be better than labeling her as a murderer.
Oh my gosh, it's so funny This game is so good with stuff like that. I don't know. Young people today. That's friendship. I don't understand it.
Careful, counsel. A lack of common sense can be a very dangerous thing. Oh dear. That recoiled on me rather badly. That's life. I'm afraid a lesson everyone must learn.
Hopefully you see now that this is really basic medical knowledge. Being involved in medical research, Mbami-san would certainly have been aware of it. In other words, there's no good reason why the defendant would have tried to pull the knife from the victim.
But the defendant had suddenly encountered somebody she knew lying on the ground, bleeding to death. The sight could have shocked her to her delicate sensibilities, causing her to remove the blade inadvertently.
I really don't think inadvertent
Ouch,
is
Zero.
explained here. The woman is a medical research assistant. I can't imagine she would behave so irrationally.
Oh, but irrational behavior is a woman's prerogative, isn't it? Oh dear,
Oh,
you. Oh dear.
I've learned a lot about women. Only a small-minded man could have such bigoted views.
Oh dear. Perhaps I'm letting my male persona take hold a little too much.
Just a little. Well, have I managed to convey the basics now? That should cover the medical side of my argument. Let's not forget, the young student did have a motive for killing the victim.
Whatever the motive, isn't it Mamani-san's nature to do something so awful?
But she had both motive and opportunity. It's very hard to argue against.
But you don't know the defendant.
Objection! And yet, counsel, do not appear to know the law. Yes, evidence is the only way to convince the court of your argument, not feelings. With this, fledgling to defend her, I'd almost say I pity the accused.
So do I. Inspector, you reiterate your point about the defendant's motive, please.
Ah, yes. Miss Brett was in many ways the sworn enemy of Mbami-san. The man the victim murdered 9 months ago, Dr. Wilson, was the defendant's highly respected mentor.
Just gonna go check if they. Okay.
No, so the reiteration was that last statement.
Well, yes, that's true. Dr. Wilson recognized Mamani-san's talent and offered her a position of assistant despite her being a woman. She was extremely grateful to him.
Yes, the Englishman appears to have been a very broad-minded individual.
Dr. Wilson had no time for outdated traditions. He met with an opposition, of course, but he believed firmly in Mamani-san's abilities.
Clearly the defendant was in the man's debt, which only serves to prove my point.
This is hopeless. I can't find a single crack in his testimony anywhere. Frey knew that withdrawing the knife from the wound would threaten Miss Brett's life further. I just can't think of any way to explain why she did it. Thought it's a time like these when it's especially important to remember the fundamentals. Fundamentals? Evidence is what counts in the courtroom, isn't it? Of course, but I've been through the court record dozens of times already. I think perhaps you're forgetting something, though. You needn't take the evidence at face value. You can and must examine it in greater detail, too. Ah. Realize it's your first time playing the role of lawyer in the courtroom. So if you need to reminding of the rudiments, you need only ask. I'll do my very best to help.
Tutorial time.
I know what to do. Come to think of it, Kazuma-sama and Naruto-san were always turning evidence over and over in their hands. Yes, I need to examine things in greater detail with A. Ah, by the look in your eyes, I see it's coming back to you. Go through the court record again and have a thorough look at everything. You may just find a clue. Yeah, I'll do it straight away. Kick out the pen's lid. Nothing obvious out of the ordinary here, does it?
Missed it by that much.
Now let's unscrew the barrel, shall we?
Barrel is empty.
This must be a little reservoir that holds the ink. Yes, you fill it by drawing ink from a bottle up through the nib. Is something wrong, Father? Just that there doesn't actually appear to be any ink in there. That's all. Oh, yes, you're right. It's pretty much empty. Well, it could be on the verge of running out, I suppose. Our initials are very clearly engraved here. And the fact that Miss Brett was clinging to this pen in her dying moments is very clearly a message, too. To identify her killer, you mean? I don't think there can be any doubt this is a key piece of evidence in this case. There's some sort of emblem here, look. But it isn't the Yume University one. It must belong to some other organization, I suppose. A business of some kind. But it would seem to imply that the pen doesn't in fact belong to Ray. Here we go. Newspaper from Saseki-san. There seems to be an important article on the back page as well. Exclusive, deadly poison stolen from Yume Medical Research Laboratory. Good God. From Yume's Medical Research Center. Isn't that your lab? What the? Let me see that. The poison's been stolen. It's this morning of paper that Saseki gave us. Are you saying you didn't know? As embarrassing that it is from the head of the laboratory, I didn't. I've not heard any such thing. Where on earth could the reporter have gleaned his information? Come to think of it, there was no article mentioning the story in our paper this morning, was there? The highly toxic poison we've been working on for the strictest confidence. I'd put Ray in charge of the project. Ray? She was managing it? What is written here is true. It means that she tried to hide the theft from me. And moreover, the details were leaked somehow. I don't believe it. We need to read this article very carefully. That's Raja's England returnees tell all. This is their interview with Yu Saseki-san as a father. Looks as though it was quite an exchange. Yes, he became a little over-animated when he was talking about his time in England. The photographer managed to capture a moment his canned karate chopped me in the neck. I do hope you weren't hurt.
So, where are we going with this, Earl?
It has nothing to do with the poison.
Think aloud. Think aloud.
I'm just going to read the statements again really quick.
It took me a moment to remember what the contradiction here was, but I remember now.
No good reason why he would pull the knife from the victim. If it was poison, Let's not forget that the young student did have a motive for killing the victim.
Hmm.
I need to prove that there was a reason to pull that knife.
Do you? You think that's a contradiction?
Newspaper containing article discussion. Yeah. Poison was stolen. Even my father is responsible for the lab knew nothing of the incident. Very small amount of liquid still inside the ink reservoir. Very small amount. Got it.
Objection.
Now there's one possibility. One very good reason why the defendant might have decided to withdraw the knife from the victim's wound.
What? Ha! The yokel not only have a poor grasp of the law, but also a poor loser. Tell us, then, what possibility do you think you've identified?
It's here in this newspaper article. An article about a deadly poison having been stolen from a laboratory at Imperial Yume Uni. Objection!
Then perish from a stab wound. Poison has no relevance to this case.
But Prosecutor Achi will let the defense speak.
But the newspaper article, court cannot rely on the kind of hearsay those wretched publications carry.
Counsel for the defense. I am going to need some tangible basis for your claim. You will indicate to court precisely which part of the newspaper article mentioned affirms your assertion.
Excellency.
Yes, of course. Thank you.
By the way, you need to read the article again.
The reason why the defendant pulled a knife from the victim's body is explained in this article where it says, God damn it.
Because when you examine it, it said you need to read it more thoroughly, but you never went to it and read it. Earl, think aloud. Where's your head at, Earl?
My head at is here. She got.
What is that relevant to the current point?
Okay, not the current point. I'm just thinking about the consensus of what might have happened. If she was stabbed in the back with the pen, she somehow grabbed it in some way, shape, or form, or the pen dropped through, at which case, when she grabbed it, she clutched it and knew that was the actual thing that stabbed her. Upon realizing the symptoms that she was suffering, she had to uh, either poke into or prod or open and get as much as the poison out as possible from the back. I think she died via poison, but the guy just looked at the stab wound and said it was a stab wound.
But why wouldn't he have checked for poison? Like, regardless. Like,
Because
isn't that something that
it's
examiners would do?
undetectable.
But also, it is confirmed he had a knife, so
Yeah.
your stabbing with the pen makes no sense.
But all you need to do is get prodded in the back.
But still, that would create a second wound.
Yeah.
And it was only one stab wound.
True.
She would have gotten stabbed by a pen too. That would have been noted.
So symptoms would be toxic.
You're overthinking it, Earl.
I know I am. Or poison lace blade, deadly in tiny qualities.
Bing, 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 bing.
Quantities, not qualities. The article reveals the following property about the poison in question. When the toxin enters the body, a knife laced with the poison is rapidly absorbed and causes death in minutes.
Are you suggesting?
If the knife used to attack Miss Brett was laced with this very poison, it would explain why the defendant, Mbani-san, would have withdrawn the blade as soon as possible. Yes, the truth is, it was an attempt to stop the poison from entering the victim's body.
What? Objection! This is complete and utter nonsense.
Not at all. The defendant withdrew the knife blade from the victim's body not to accelerate the woman's demise, but to save her life, and the prosecution could not deny the possibility.
Have you not read the post-mortem report? The cause of death was hemorrhage. The word poison appears nowhere within this document.
Well, that's because by acting quickly to remove the blade, the defendant prevented the poison from taking hold.
Objection! Oh, please. This is clearly desperation. The weasel's last breaking the wind. Poison has nothing whatsoever to do with this case, as I believe the defense is well aware. We have no proof on that information in a wretched newspaper article is reliable. In that situation, what the student should have done is wait for medical assistance to arrive. But instead, you claim she suspected poisoning and took the potential lethal decision to remove the blade. She must have had a strong reason for her suspicions, or the argument makes no sense. Exactly. Well put, Inspector. On what grounds did she do it, Yoko?
Why did Ray suspect that stolen poison was involved? She saw the symptoms. If you want grounds, I'll give you grounds.
What? You can't possibly.
From your expression, counsel, it would appear those are not empty words. Naturally, as you stand in the courtroom as a lawyer, you must be aware that words alone, empty or not, are of no value in our modern justice system. The court demands evidence. Yes, Your Excellency, I'm well aware of that. I've seen it many times from my place at his side in the Old Bailey. In that case, counsel, you present proof that the court now. What evidence demonstrates the clear link between this case and the person in the news article?
Don't overthink it.
How exactly would you explain this piece of evidence's connection to the newspaper article? In truth, I'm not really sure. But my father always taught me to ask my elders whenever I was in trouble. So I thought I should ask your opinion, Your Excellency. If it is advice you seek, counsel, then I suggest that this before indiscriminately thrusting evidence under my nose. Why not thrust it under Professor Elias? I thought that was a really weird transition. We died, peeps. It's the first time I lost 2 points in one room. I think that means you.
Just wait till case 3 of this game. It's the hardest case in the game.
Thrusting it out of my nose isn't going to solve anything here. We must use our heads. The article in paper had details about the toxin. Where have you seen similar details? Does nowhere come to mind? You mean I ought to search through all the evidence looking for that? I'm not mistaken, it appears the advice of your elders has given you an idea. Yes, I'd like another chance to present evidence, if I may, Your Excellency. Impaired breathing ended with acute contraction of the pupils prior to death.
Yeah, I will give you a head note. The final contradiction of case 3 is the hardest one to find. Like, everyone struggled on it seemed. So you're in for a treat.
Damn it.
Earl, you're overthinking this.
I know I am.
Have you read through everything?
No.
I think if you read a certain thing, you'd realize instantly what you need to present here.
I heard you face palming. I heard you. I heard the most audible face palm in the world. Never mind me. That was great.
I literally told you to read into this a little more, and you just go and present.
Okay. Death is believed due to trauma to the victim's lung from a knife blade. Only a single wound was identified. Oh no.
Note that everything has a magnifying glass. You can read into stuff more.
Impaired breathing. Oh, she created an airway.
No.
Read.
Read.
Wait,
Just
what?
Read.
There it is.
Oh my gosh, Earl, if you would just read, you would have found it way sooner.
Okay. I'm going to be honest with you. There's the reason why I didn't find this. Is because every single post-mortem report before this has literally only been one page. I'd ask the court to refer to the note section of the post-mortem report, which reads, extreme meiosis, pupil constriction, was observed in the victim. Clearly being Yoko with no knowledge of forensic science, I have no idea, so please do tell me. Presumably, the fact that this condition of the victim was noted in the post-mortem report means that it's an unusual symptom of death.
Well, under normal circumstances, the pupils dilate when someone dies. When this extreme constriction is dead, it's most certainly unusual, yes. What are you doing, you yokel detective?
In the newspaper article, there's the following information about the stolen poison. Onset of symptoms occurs in minutes, ending with acute constriction of the pupils prior to death.
What?
If the defendant, upon seeing the victim stabbed in the back, happened to notice that the pupils of Miss Brett's eyes had constricted severely. Yes, as a medical research assistant, she would have suspected a poison immediately, without doubt. Prosecutor Achi, I think you'll agree. There's very compelling evidence. You. Yoko student and Yoko...
Yoko professor!
I read your shit again, I'm sorry.
Zero Dragon's gonna take your head off.
I believe the defense has expertly demonstrated a credible reason for the defendant's actions.
No.
Hyutin Mikotoba. Yes, Your Excellency. I believe you are best placed here to confirm or deny the veracity of the defense counsel's argument. You will tell the court the truth about the details reported in this newspaper, please.
Uh-oh.
It pains me to have to admit it. But I'm afraid I don't know. You don't know? The toxin was kept under lock and key in my laboratory, certainly, but I was unaware of any theft. Do you mean to tell the court that the reports of this theft are unfounded? I'll be tree-fitty. No, Your Excellency, without returning to the laboratory to investigate myself, I couldn't say.
Listen to the bumbling academic. Unaware of the theft of a state secret research from his own workplace until he reads it in a newspaper.
I take full responsibility for the incompetence of my supervision. Father.
What a pitiful situation for a university professor. You should have more control over your students, rather than allowing them to off on killing sprees.
That's totally unfounded.
All that. Oh, I was right. I was right.
None of this is Professor Mikotoba's fault. It's all my fault. Ray, Bonnie-san, you just stand accused here. Outbursts like this will not be tolerated. But it was me. I was the one who noticed that the poison that we're developing had been stolen that day. What? So you knew? I'd been placed in charge of overseeing the project. It was the day that the professor and Saseki-san were interviewed together for the newspaper. That's when I noticed that some of the poison was missing. Just a tiny amount it was. Why didn't you let me know immediately? I was scared. The whole project seemed to be supposed to be confidential, but some of the toxin had somehow been taken. So I decided I'd try to get it back before anyone else found out. Because I had a very good idea who the thief was. The thief? You don't mean. Yes, of course, it was a dainty Englishwoman. Miss Giselle Brett. That's why I decided to join the little group of people going to the seaside. Inside the beach hut, I confronted Miss Brett. But she sat on a stool at the back of the hut, smiling sweetly at me as if she knew this she was untouchable. I freaking knew it! She stabbed from behind. I know it was you who stole the poison. Well now, whatever do you mean?
Well, now, whatever do you mean?
And then, she suddenly got to her feet, before falling to her knees in front of me and then collapsing on the floor. That's when I saw the knife in her back. I couldn't understand what had just happened. And then a moment later, I was seized with fear. The pupils of her eyes they shrunk to tiny pinpoints. I don't believe it. In other words, you realize that the victim was suffering the effects of the stolen poison. My mind started racing. I hadn't seen anything past Miss Brett's lips, who I'd been with her, which left only one possible way for the poison to have entered her body. On the blade of the knife in her back. And that train of thought was what spurred you to withdraw the blade. Yes, if the amount that had entered her bloodstream was small enough, she might still have a chance. That's what I had hoped. Really, I'm so sorry for staying silent all this time. Your attempt to hide the truth of what happened is not something that can be overlooked. However, I have duly noted the courage with which you will be confessed in the end. Thank you, Your Excellency. I'm going to jail.
Perjury.
Yep, it's barely perceptible.
Okay, defendant is now accused of perjury. You are found guilty. Alright, as for the murder charge, you're dismissed. Okay, whatever.
But I do think the balance has shifted a little here, in this courtroom now.
Excellency, do not be deceived. The victim just collapsed before your eyes, you say? Well, Membami-san, if that's the case, perhaps you could explain how Miss Brett came to be stabbed.
Well,
You have no answer because the simple truth is that you stabbed the victim motivated by revenge.
But you have no conclusive evidence to prove that assertion, do you?
Oh, I have evidence, and it is very much conclusive.
What's the prosecution counsel up to? It was brief, but he hesitated for a moment there. I'm almost sure of it. You'll produce the aforementioned evidence at once, Prosecutor Achi. Perhaps some praise is due.
For the young yokel student.
God damn it, I did it again. What? You realize I'm staring at a text box and not the people?
I had imagined that there would be no need for me to submit this evidence. But you've brought this on yourself. Also, it straight up says her name on top of the text box. You should pay attention to
On the
that
top
too.
left.
What?
Oh. I think that hesitation is he realized. I think he knows how it was done because he has the photo. So whoever took the photo is the whodunit. It's taken from the back of the shack. Could it have been Uchi? What the? Could a more damning shot exist? The cruelty in the air on that breach is almost palpable. Hey, we saw her face!
I will note the reason you're thinking is not why he hesitated. That will get explained in a moment. This evidence, more than any other, reveals the true extent of the accused's murderous nature.
Also, someone's taking a picture of the girl's hut.
Irv. For it shows the precise moment that Mimbami-san plunged her dagger to the victim's back.
No, that's not true. No. I don't believe it.
Ah!
Order, order, order. Counsel for the defense, was it you who was responsible for that shrill scream that just pierced my courtroom?
Perhaps his voice has yet to break. These yokel are slow to mind and slow to mature.
I'll show you who's slow to mature. Careful now, Sasato's starting to show her face here. It's often said a picture is worth 1,000 words, and here we have ample proof. The court will accept this extremely cogent photographic print into evidence. I can't believe he had a photograph like that up his sleeve the entire time.
So, what's your thoughts on this photograph? Earl, think out loud.
Is this like a spider web? What's with the crack?
I will tell you this: the next contradiction, or the next issue, took me like 10 minutes to figure out because I was so stupid. But once you see it, you can't unsee it. Earl, see it.
Who is the news reporter?
It took me forever to realize that. I did not see that picture at all.
How did... No! Wait, that's his article. The cameraman. Well, of course the cameraman took it, but who's the cameraman?
Progress it. Just keep progressing. It will get talked to. We're working on it.
Is it the guy in the background who's like jumping in behind? Oh no. So whoever the cameraman is the guy who fucking did it. It's a stark image. I'm generally lost for words.
What, you think he did it just for taking a picture?
Okay. First of all, that's shortly after the murder took place. If we prove that he stabbed the victim through the back, through the tent, we see the angle from the tent inside, and he took a photo proving that he was the guy who took a photo moments shortly after the murder, then he's the only one who could have done it. We got to find more to pin him. Who took the photograph? Who penetrated the woman from behind? Yes. Yes. Penetrated. That's
Now, that is of no importance here. Stop trying to divert attention.
Oh. That's an absurd thing to say. It's crucially important. Whoever took this photographic print was a witness to Miss Brett's death. The court must be allowed to hear this person's testimony. I will uphold the defense's demand. The prosecution will reveal the identity of the person responsible for taking this photograph at once.
Well, I'm afraid I can't do that.
Pardon?
You see, this print arrived at the Imperial Police Bureau headquarters by express post yesterday. But there was nothing to indicate the sender's name or address. The provenance of this print is unknown.
Goodness. Are we to understand that cancel?
That is why he hesitated, because he doesn't know the origin of the photo.
Okay. That in full knowledge of the fact that this photograph had the murkiest of origins, you nevertheless believed it for its submission as evidence at the Supreme Court? When you first produced that print before, I noticed that you hesitated for a brief moment, because you knew that it wasn't completely reliable evidence, didn't you? Silence.
Silence, you yokel student and blabbering professor.
God. What matters
is
God damn it!
the print so eloquently expresses.
But the defendant has already admitted to pulling the blade from the wound. Clearly, this isn't the moment that the knife was plunged at the victim's back, but...
The moment it was withdrawn. Don't waste the court's time with your rambling.
Indeed, without knowledge of who produced the print, we have no means of verifying the claim. You're up to 1050.
Where's my cut of this, Zero Dragon?
Yeah, theoretically, Shiro should be receiving the cut, and he got his cut yesterday when a giant air horn came with it.
Yeah, he's brat.
Also, everyone, if you're watching this on YouTube, twitch.tv/LordShiro, 500 bits for the air horn.
Yeah, I have sound alerts, and it's a curse sometimes. But then there's times where people do, it was at this moment, he knew, he messed up. It is just perfectly aligned with what's happening in the game.
That was great.
That was great. It's like the moment his thing flipped up is when it launched, and I was like, oh my god.